Are you curious about the unknown, the unexplainable? Do you find yourself intrigued by the mysterious and paranormal side of our world? Join us on an adventure into the world of inexplicable discoveries and investigations that may someday give us a final answer as to what may be behind the veil of reality. Then it's time to turn your pods up, because we're live to tape from the mountains of West Virginia. It's time once again for Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. The universe is waiting for you.
Live to tape from the mountains of West Virginia, it's another episode of Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. Thank you for taking this journey with me. On this episode of Let's Find Out, our guest is no stranger to the world of the paranormal. While attending Radford University, he once lived in a haunted house during his junior and senior year. His debut novel, The Haunting of Crimshaw Manor, is the first of a series that documents a fictional University Paranormal Club that investigates the strange and bizarre. Available through BHC Press, he's also currently working on his next ghostly novel. Please welcome to Let's Find Out a new friend to our show, author Mark E. Drotos. Mark, my friend, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Diego. I appreciate it.
Sure. And I know we were discussing earlier, and you asked me, how did I hear about you and your book? It's one of those things that I don't know how. It was either on Instagram or on Twitter, but we're talking about the cover of the book, which is attention grabbing at that. But before we dive into the Haunting of Crimshaw Manor, we kind of glossed over this during the intro, and we actually talked about it before the show. It's one of the most exciting things. I don't know about you. Can we go back to the time machine, to the days of Radford University, and let's get into it about the house you lived in. You said it was haunted, correct?
Correct. It was back in the 80s, great decade.
Yes.
And like a lot of college students, when I became a junior, I wanted to move off campus. And I went to a realtor down at Radford, Virginia. And, he showed me various places, and he said he had a property. It was a house that the elderly resident had just passed away. He goes, if you want to, I can show you that. And I said, oh, absolutely. So we went over there, and this house was right out of every stereotype that you can imagine. Had a huge oak tree or two in it in the yard, had a wraparound porch, big gable roof. I mean, it was beautiful. So we went in, and he walked us through the prior residents' belongings were still there. And he showed me, he said, this house, I'm going to put a wall right here. And he showed me, and you can either rent the front of the house that includes the upstairs or the back. And I said, okay, well, it's just me and a friend. I said, we'll rent the back. So by the time that came around, they renovated it. We moved in, me and my friend John, and he moved into one bedroom. I was in the other bedroom, and house was old, had a basement. We had the basement access side, had a basement that went down rickety stairs to a dirt carved out basement that had a weird secret room in half of the house. There was a brick wall that had a hole in it. You go through that, and there was busted up staircases that went up to the front hallway closet. I don't know what that was about, but it was an old house. It was built in the late 1800s. As it is, getting to the whole point of it, I was sleeping, and this is way before all the ghost shows. Didn't have much knowledge. I wish I did. I would have done things, but I recall vividly to this day of sleeping in my bedroom. And I had seen the house originally. Part of my bedroom was the hallway. that they had put the wall through. And people might understand this, but especially if you're a parent, if you're sleeping and something comes into your room, like a child or another person, you feel it. You feel it even if you're dead asleep. And I felt it. I opened up my eyes and I saw this now, a shadow figure just walk from one wall to the other wall.
Wow.
And now that was the hallway. That was a hallway when the house was original. So obviously it freaked me out, and the happened like 2 more times during a semester, and then the following semester we decided to get another roommate. So my friend John moved in with me into my bedroom, and he put his bed right there where I saw the apparition, this shadow figure. I said, John, you don't want to put your bed there. He goes, why? I said, that's where the ghost comes walking through. He laughed it off. And as it turns out, and there's no rhyme or reason, felt something. I looked up and I started watching it walk across. And then John started screaming and he goes, I saw it. I saw it. So we definitely lived in this weird house. The people in the front of the house, we never had contact with, but when we were talking to them, they likewise had strange things happen in their house. I was recently down at Radford at St. Albans, as a matter of fact, down at Radford for an event. And I went by that old house, and that old house has been torn down, and there's apartments there. And I just kind of wonder to this day if there's any residual type of presence there.
I would imagine so, being that the land may have already been had activity on it. Then the house was built, and then they tore down that house, built apartments. I would say it might have upset even more.
I agree. I agree. Maybe next time I go down there, I might actually knock on the door too. But that was in the 80s, as I said, and it really did spur that question that which a lot of people in the paranormal field, what is this? What is this that I've actually have seen with my own eyes? And it I can tell you, it happened. That's no doubt.
Yeah, and and speaking earlier, talking about the 80s, you and I, we grew up around the same times, I'm pretty sure. And back then, it was kind of one of those things you really didn't want to talk about unless there was a family history or you heard it from your neighbors or you're from the old country. Now, prior to you moving into this home, did you have any experiences growing up? Is there a family history of paranormal experiences?
Not really. My father was a park ranger, and we lived in various parks, which we were remote, living in remote areas, and the woods are scary. I used to be a big camper. I don't think I can go camping anymore, but we never really had any ghostly or spiritual type thing. We're still, my family's still religious practitioners, but I think it's just a combination of many things of where you're at, if you're in tune or open, and a lot of it, I really do believe, is having an open mind and just being in that moment.
Prior to you moving to the house, and I know I just asked the question, but right before you moved there, the realtor didn't say anything about this, or people before that were living there, no, nothing at all. Just go in there and just rent this house to this young person in college, and good luck, right?
Pretty much. I hate to say this, and I won't mention the company, but they're pretty big in Radford. Plain and simple. We got property. You want it, you pay the rent. And be honest with you, he probably didn't know anything. I mean, the woman who was living there had probably 2 weeks prior had passed away, and they had acquired the property. Um, yeah, I still remember up in the attic. It was one of those attics that you actually walk upstairs, and it had, I called them the Amityville horror windows in the
Oh
front.
my, yes.
Um, I also remember in the front of the house, in the bathroom upstairs, they had a claw tub. I mean, it was a beautiful house. Like I said, I just recently had gone back to Radford, and I said, I gotta go look it up and see. And it wasn't there, and it was a shame. But yeah, it's still. I've gone back on Google Maps, and there's a picture of it from the archives.
Wow. And you mentioned earlier that when you moved there still some of the items belonging to the prior tenants were still there.
Yeah, yeah. I'm getting the impression she didn't have any next of kin or anything, and it was just sort of like an estate that they acquired everything, and they moved quickly and just went in, probably removed everything. What they did with it, who knows? And for them, slapped up a wall between, like I said, that hallway and a dining room. I mean, that was where they put this wall that separated the front and the back. And that was it. That was it. You know, college students can live in most anything.
Yeah, that's very true. Which brings me to now with the Haunting of Crimshaw Manor. Uh, how much of your experience in this house did went into writing this book, and when was the right time to start?
Um, well, first off, going back to Radford, I was a big gamer, role playing games, and originally back in the early or late '70s with Dungeons and Dragons and all that. But then in the '80s, and I remember when we went, when it was just such a cool thing. Sounds so corny, but they had role playing games that dealt with horror or the paranormal, such things as Call of Cthulhu, or there was a game system called GURPS Horrors, and oh, I loved it. And we would play that type of game system, um, and it was the classic mystery of, again, this is way before all the ghost hunting TV shows and all the knowledge, but um, so part of it was from playing different games. Definitely Crimshaw Manor and where I was living at the time, a couple things, I want to say experiences or moments came. I was like, yeah, that I experienced it. I felt it. I know what that, as I was describing before, that sense of feeling a presence when you're even in a dead sleep, that something just has come through into your room. No, I get a chill now thinking of it. That added to the fact of being able to write it. How I came about writing it, I'm not a writer. I mean, it sounds terrible, and I guess my publishers say don't say that, but I had a story. That I wanted to. I said, you know what, I could write. I read a lot. I could write a story, and I just put it all out there. And it was a process because I didn't know what I was doing, and it took me a while. And happy to say now, I've gotten through that process. I'm happy with what this book has produced, and I'm currently working halfway through the second book now.
Wow. So for the listeners of Let's Find Out, and I know we touched a little bit about your paranormal past. Let's talk about your debut novel and give us a little bit of a overview of what it's about.
All right, fantastic. The Haunting of Crimshaw Manor, in a nutshell, and I think you alluded to it in the intro. Crimshaw Manor is a historic manor house in western part of Virginia. The town of Strathmore is fictional, and it's somewhere west of Route 81, if you're familiar with Virginia,
Oh yeah.
between Winchester and Harrisonburg. And it's a college town, no big surprise. And they have a paranormal department, a degree program. So that's where the characters are drawn from. The club, a paranormal investigation club, finally gets permission to go to one of the supposedly most haunted places in that area, Crimshaw Manor. And that goes back to a story that took place back in the 1860s, late 1860s, during a blizzard, a big blizzard, a terrible blizzard. The town folk, after they were able to dig themselves out, hadn't heard from anybody up at Crimshaw Manor. So they sent a group up there to see what, if they were okay, help them out. And they come up to the manor house and they find that all the livestock are gone or deceased, which strange, but it was a terrible storm. Then they go up to the house and they see the front doors wide open. Okay, that's not a good sign. And as they came into the house, they discovered the body of Elizabeth Crimshaw hanging in the foyer from the second rail banister. The man of the house, Benjamin Crimshaw, and their son, Jonathan, were never found. So for 150 years or so, just as small towns would say, it was haunted. People would hear things, see strange shadows moving in the upstairs windows, hear an occasional scream. And eventually it was a historic home. The Strathmore Historical Society purchased it and restored it and kept it pretty much near where it is to near perfect condition. And they do tours and things of that nature.
Also, with that, you have a series of short stories related to that book too, right?
On my website, which is pretty straightforward, medrotos.com. What I wanted to do, and the publisher was really excited about this concept, is this is a fictional setting, of course, but I wanted people really to get into it. And the concept for me was, okay, if you can read the book, but if you want more, I mean, I have short stories that are just mini investigations that I've posted to get a little better sense of, as I always told people, to introduce characters, to get a little bit more insight into them, into the equipment, into exactly what paranormal investigations can, may, and do when they're in the field. They're standalone. I mean, there is a timeline. I'm a big map and timeline guy, so so people can see where it falls. And there's a bunch of other fun things on there. Publisher wanted me to create a list of book club questions. By all means, they're there. And something funny or interesting was I posted a bunch of music as well that I said, this would be the soundtrack if there ever was a movie. And it's all on there for people to take what they want and do what they want, along with maps of Crimshaw Manor. Again, I'm a visual guy. I like to see what you're talking about.
And speaking of the song list, so I'm imagining 70s and 80s music to it.
Well, my kids always laugh at me. There is 80s.
Yes, perfect.
The Cure, man, you can't get past the Cure. But there's modern music there as well. And as I said, a lot of, I don't know if this is how it is with other writers, but I have an hour commute. So I got a lot of time to think. And as I'm thinking about the story or whatever, a song will just either come across the radio or playlist. I go, oh my gosh, that is perfect for whatever. In particular, there's a couple haunting songs that fit Elizabeth Crimshaw and her spirit that's there at Crimshaw Manor.
And I feel forced to ask because I think it's a great follow-up question, not toot my own horn, but since your days in Radford and then you had your career in law enforcement, and have you had any other experiences since then?
Geez, how many years have I been in law enforcement? I'm nearing the end of my career. I think I'm close to 30 years. And any police officer or anybody in law enforcement will tell you, you see everything that humanity has to offer. And that goes the same with fire and rescue, EMS. I've been in houses, been in a lot of different houses where, yeah, there's some weird stuff, some weird practices that people do. Again, that's their prerogative as long as it's not illegal. But as far as strange and unusual, I'll have to say there's been places I've been to that you get that feeling that something's up here, something's going on here. Something here has happened here. And by all means, I'm not saying I'm a medium or a sensitive or anything of that nature, but I think most people have that ability or atonement to that they can feel something's here. And I haven't seen anything on the job, but I've definitely been to places where there's something there. There's something there, and there may even be something still lingering that wants to communicate. But unfortunately, it's not like I can come back.
Right, and I have no doubt I'm very sure there's some sort of residual energy. I mean, especially, Virginia, of all states with the history that it has, one would say, of course, there has to be something.
You stated something that was very much important to me. I'm a Virginian. I love Virginia. And of course, everybody's going to say that about their state. But I grew up in Northern Virginia, went to school in Southwest Virginia, spent a couple years over in Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads area. Been all over the state. We have kinfolk way down Southwest, past Roanoke, past Wytheville, down in the valley. It's a beautiful state. The Appalachians, there's a culture there in the Appalachians. My goal in my writing, hopefully, like I said, I have plans to write several more books. Hope the publisher sees the same lines, but is to expose people to that, to Virginia, to the history, to the 1600s. It had a long history of people living here. Beyond that, even.
Yes, and I was amazed ever since I started this podcast, and I've interviewed several folks, even people I've talked to outside of the podcast who lived in Virginia. I was amazed of the history of what the state is. And being in school in Virginia, you hear this history, but there's nothing compared to listening to somebody telling you a story who's from the area or who's lived there most of their lives. You start hearing a lot of wild tales.
That's so true. When you go back, and I don't know if you knew this or not, prior to me becoming a police officer and then a police detective, I was a park ranger, and I worked out at Manassas Battlefield. Okay. I lived in a house on the battlefield. You can't have such traumatic events like that happening that has not left something. And going back to, as you asked me before, have ever experienced anything else? Personally, no, but boy, there's a lot of other rangers, other people that they'd be on somewhere hearing, is somebody screwing around? Is that musket fire? Or seeing people walking through the woods that doesn't look right. And back when you come to find out that wasn't woods at all, it was a field. It's just, it is. It's just, there's a lot of history. And, currently now I live in Alexandria near Mount Vernon, and it's just, this land has a lot of history. A lot of stuff has happened before this current time.
And for the listeners of Let's Find Out that want to know more about your book and where to purchase it, where can they go not only to find out more about the book, but find out more about you? How can they contact you?
Absolutely. The best way would be the website, Drotos.com. My book is on the publisher's website, BHC Press.com. Of course, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, various other formats. I was happy that the publisher was, after the book came out in July of 22, they wanted to go audio, and they did outstanding. Again, I had no say in it, and I was a little apprehensive. But the narrator, because I listen to audiobooks, the narrator, outstanding, and I was very happy with that. I encourage people, read the story, then listen to it. But those are the best. I'm also on Twitter or X, whatever it's called these days. Instagram, I kind of do, but mostly it's Twitter, Facebook, and my website.
Excellent. Now, the magic question is going to be, now that you're working with a follow-up, when is the tentative time it might be released?
Ooh, good question. The master of me is time, and I recently had a lot of extra time, and man, I was going good, right? And so I'm about halfway through. It's called The Spirits of Domains, which no spoiler. Domains is the building that the main character ends up occupying, and it's a haunted prior funeral home. It really goes into what's going on there, and there is an underlying theme that will slowly be exposed, as well as the investigation, which is predominant for each book that I plan to do. For The Spirits of Domains, halfway through. I hope to be done by the end of this year. Get it edited. I would love to see it out by the summer of 24, or definitely the fall of 24. I would love to see it out. The book after that, the story after that's already been written. It just needs to be greatly condensed. I wrote too much. So that will be probably a quick turnaround once I get this one out, which made more sense to go into the building that is a part of the main characters, Stephen and Evelyn.
Perfect. If you don't mind, once you release the second and third, if you're coming back on Let's Find Out and let us know about it, share the story, and I'll be happy to have you back if you're willing to come back.
Absolutely. I appreciate talking it, and I always tell people, please, if you got a question about the story, you can drop me a line, you can drop me an email on my website. I go to events. I love talking to people, whether about the book, about writing, about again, this is all new to me. I'm not a professional writer, but I like talking to people about the genre and about things of the paranormal.
Excellent. And they're going to love talking to you, my friend. Thank you for being on Let's Find Out. And we'll stay in touch. I'm going to make sure everybody visits the website and find out where the events you're going to be attending.
Thank you, sir.
Sure thing. This has been another excellent episode of Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. Please check us out on all our social media pages as well as our YouTube channel, and we're also on Rumble. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Until next time, my friends.
Thank you for listening to Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Pocket Casts, and on Anchor. For more information about Let's Find Out with co-host Diego, please visit us on facebook.com/co-host Diego, on Twitter at co-host_Diego, and on Instagram as co-host Diego. Copyright co-host Diego. All content for Let's Find Out is the property of co-host Diego and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, co-host Diego, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out is provided on an as-is basis with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.